The question hung in the air, unspoken yet palpable. Why them? Why were only the most beautiful women being taken? The year was 1943. The setting, a small, picturesque village nestled in the heart of occupied France. Cobblestone streets, once filled with laughter and the aroma of freshly baked bread, now echoed with the heavy tread of German soldiers and the chilling silence of fear. The protagonist of this unfolding nightmare was Elodie, a young woman known throughout the village for her striking beauty and unwavering spirit. Elodie worked at the local bakery, her days filled with the comforting rhythm of kneading dough and the warmth of the oven. Before the war, her laughter was as common as the church bells. Now, her smiles were rare, reserved for her younger brother, a boy with eyes that held too much knowledge for his age. Elodie's routine was simple. Wake before dawn, prepare the day's bread, share what little they had with her brother, and try to ignore the ever-present dread that clung to the village like morning mist. But this morning was different. The usual pre-dawn quiet was shattered by the roar of military vehicles. German soldiers, their faces grim, stormed through the village square, barking orders in guttural German. They gathered the women, young and old, in the center of the square. Confusion rippled through the crowd. What did they want? Were they searching for resistance fighters, demanding more rations? Elodie stood with her mother, her hand trembling in her mother's reassuring grip. Then the selection began. An officer, his uniform crisp and immaculate, walked slowly along the line of women, his eyes cold and assessing. He stopped in front of some, nodding curtly. Those women were pulled from the line, their faces a mixture of fear and bewilderment. Others were dismissed with a wave of his hand. Elodie watched, her heart pounding in her chest as the officer approached. He stopped before her, his gaze lingering for what felt like an eternity. She met his eyes, refusing to show fear, even as her knees threatened to buckle. A flicker of something unreadable crossed his face before he nodded. Two soldiers stepped forward and pulled her from her mother's grasp. Elodie. Her mother's cry was lost in the chaos as she was led away, joining the other chosen women. As they were herded onto trucks, Elodie looked back at her mother, her eyes pleading for understanding. But her mother could only offer a look of helpless terror. The trucks rumbled to life, carrying their cargo of beautiful women away from the village, away from their families, away from everything they knew. Elodie watched as her village receded into the distance, a knot of dread tightening in her stomach. Where were they being taken, and why? The journey was long and arduous. The women were crammed into the trucks, the air thick with fear and uncertainty. They spoke in hushed whispers, speculating about their destination and the reason for their abduction. Some believed they were being taken to work in factories, others feared the worst. Elodie remained silent, her mind racing, trying to make sense of the senseless. Finally, the trucks arrived at their destination, a sprawling estate hidden deep in the countryside. The house was grand and imposing, a stark contrast to the simplicity and hardship they had left behind. Manicured lawns stretched as far as the eye could see, and the air was filled with the scent of roses and expensive perfume. It was a world of luxury and opulence, a world that seemed impossibly distant from the grim reality of occupied France. As they were led inside, Elodie couldn't help but notice the strange atmosphere of the place. The staff were polite but distant, their eyes devoid of emotion. The house was lavishly decorated, but there was a coldness to it, a sense of emptiness that belied its beauty. The women were given rooms of their own, each one exquisitely furnished with silk sheets, plush carpets, and antique furniture. They were provided with elegant dresses, fine jewelry, and an endless supply of food and wine. It was a paradise, but a paradise with bars on the windows. The days that followed were filled with an unsettling routine. The women were expected to dress impeccably, attend elaborate meals, and engage in polite conversation. They were encouraged to relax and enjoy the amenities of the estate, but they were never allowed to leave. Guards patrolled the grounds, and the doors were always locked. They were prisoners in paradise. Elodie found it impossible to relax. She spent her days observing, trying to piece together the puzzle of their captivity. She noticed that the women were constantly being watched, their every move scrutinized. She also noticed that they were being subtly groomed, their appearance carefully controlled. Their hair was styled, their makeup applied, and their clothes chosen for them. It was as if they were being prepared for something. One evening, Elodie overheard a conversation between two of the guards. They were speaking in hushed tones, but she managed to catch a few words. Selection, the FURA, special purpose. The words sent a chill down her spine. What special purpose could they possibly serve? What did the FURA want with them? Driven by a growing sense of unease, Elodie began to investigate. She befriended some of the other women, sharing her suspicions and gathering information. She learned that the women had been chosen not only for their beauty, but also for their intelligence and their family backgrounds. Some came from prominent families, others were known for their artistic talents. It was a strange and unsettling mix. One of the women, a young artist named Sophie, had managed to smuggle a small notebook and pencil into the estate. She used them to sketch the layout of the house and the surrounding grounds, creating a map of their prison. Sophie had also noticed a hidden room behind the library, a room that was always locked and guarded. She suspected it held the key to their captivity. Together, Elodie and Sophie hatched a plan to explore the hidden room. They knew it was risky, but they were desperate to uncover the truth. They enlisted the help of a few other women, and together they devised a distraction that would allow them to slip away unnoticed. On the night of the planned escape, Elodie's heart pounded in her chest as she waited for the signal. The women created a commotion in the dining room, feigning illness and demanding attention. As the staff rushed to their aid, Elodie and Sophie slipped away, making their way to the library. The door to the hidden room was locked, but Sophie had managed to create a makeshift key from a hairpin. With trembling hands, she inserted the key into the lock and turned. The door clicked open. They slipped inside, their hearts pounding in their chests. The room was small and sparsely furnished. A single desk stood in the center, littered with papers and files. A large portrait of Adolf Hitler hung on the wall, his eyes seeming to follow them as they moved. Elodie and Sophie began to search the room, their eyes scanning every inch of the space. They found nothing of immediate interest, just routine paperwork and official documents. Then, Elodie noticed a small, leather-bound diary hidden beneath a stack of papers. She picked it up, her fingers trembling as she opened it. The diary was written in German, but Elodie could read enough to understand its contents. It was a logbook, detailing the arrival and departure of various individuals at the estate. As she flipped through the pages, Elodie's blood ran cold. She recognized some of the names: high-ranking German officers, influential politicians, and wealthy industrialists. They had all visited the estate, but what were they doing here? What was the purpose of these clandestine meetings? Then, she found an entry that made her stomach churn. It was a list of the women who had been brought to the estate, along with detailed descriptions of their physical attributes and their family backgrounds. The entry concluded with a chilling sentence: suitable candidates for Lebensborn program. Elodie knew what Lebensborn was. It was a Nazi program designed to increase the Aryan population by encouraging racially pure women to bear children with German officers. The horrifying truth dawned on her. They had been chosen for their beauty and their supposed Aryan heritage. They were to be used as breeding stock for the Nazi regime. Suddenly, the door to the hidden room burst open. A German officer stood in the doorway, his face contorted with rage. "What are you doing here?" he roared, his hand reaching for his pistol. Elodie and Sophie froze, their escape cut off. They were trapped. The officer advanced towards them, his eyes filled with fury. "You know too much," he snarled. "You will not leave this room alive." Elodie knew they were in grave danger. They had stumbled upon a secret that the Nazis would kill to protect. But as the officer raised his pistol, Elodie noticed something strange. His eyes darted nervously towards the portrait of Hitler on the wall. He seemed afraid, almost as if he were being watched. Then she noticed something else, a small, almost imperceptible symbol etched into the frame of the portrait. It was a symbol she recognized, a symbol of the German resistance. Could it be possible? Was there someone on the inside, someone who was working against the Nazis? The officer fired his pistol. Elodie screamed, bracing for the impact. But the bullet never came. Instead, the officer crumpled to the ground, a dagger protruding from his back. A figure emerged from the shadows, his face hidden beneath a hood. He was one of the estate's gardeners, a quiet, unassuming man who had always kept to himself. "Come with me," he whispered, his voice urgent. "There's no time to explain." Elodie and Sophie exchanged a bewildered glance. Could they trust him? Was he truly a member of the resistance? They had no choice. They followed him out of the room, leaving the dead officer behind. The gardener led them through a series of secret passages, hidden behind walls and beneath floors. He explained that he had been working with the resistance for years, gathering information and sabotaging the Nazi efforts. He had known about the Lebensborn program and had been waiting for an opportunity to expose it. He revealed a secret escape route, a tunnel that led from the estate to a nearby forest. Once they reached the forest, they could make their way to a safe house where they would be protected by the resistance. Elodie and Sophie followed him, their hearts filled with a mixture of hope and fear. They were so close to freedom, but they knew that the Nazis would stop at nothing to recapture them. As they reached the entrance to the tunnel, the gardener stopped. "I can't go with you," he said. "I have to stay here and continue my work, but I will do everything I can to help you escape." He handed Elodie a small, sealed envelope. "This contains information that could bring down the entire Lebensborn program," he said. "Get it to the resistance leaders in Paris. They will know what to do." Elodie took the envelope, her fingers trembling. "Thank you," she said, her voice choked with emotion. "You're a true hero." The gardener smiled sadly. "Just survive," he said. "That's all that matters." He turned and disappeared back into the shadows, leaving Elodie and Sophie alone. They entered the tunnel, their hearts pounding in their chests. The tunnel was dark and damp, the air thick with the smell of earth and decay. They stumbled along, their hands outstretched, trying to find their way. Suddenly they heard a noise behind them, footsteps. They were being followed. Elodie and Sophie broke into a run, their lungs burning, their legs aching. The footsteps grew closer, more insistent. They knew they couldn't outrun their pursuers. They had to find a place to hide. They spotted a small alcove in the wall of the tunnel. They squeezed inside, holding their breath, praying that they wouldn't be discovered. The footsteps passed by, growing fainter in the distance. Elodie and Sophie waited, their bodies trembling until they were sure that they were alone. They emerged from the alcove, their faces pale with fear. They had escaped, but they knew that they were not safe yet. The Nazis were still hunting them, and they had a long and dangerous journey ahead of them. As they continued their escape through the dark, winding tunnel, Elodie couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The gardener's help had seemed too easy, too convenient. He had appeared just when they needed him most, providing them with a way out and a crucial piece of evidence. But what if it was all a trap? What if the gardener was not who he seemed to be? The thought sent a shiver down her spine. She looked at Sophie, her face etched with worry. "Sophie," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't trust him," Sophie frowned. "What do you mean? He saved our lives." "I know," Elodie said, "but something doesn't feel right. What if he's leading us into a trap?" Sophie considered her words. She knew that Elodie had a good instinct for danger. "What do you suggest we do?" she asked. "I think we should open the envelope," Elodie said. "See what's really inside." Sophie hesitated. "But the gardener said to give it to the resistance leaders in Paris." "I know," Elodie said. "But I think we need to know what we're carrying. If it's a trap, we need to be prepared." Together, they carefully broke the seal on the envelope. Inside, they found a single sheet of paper. Elodie unfolded it, her eyes scanning the contents. The paper contained a list of names, addresses, and dates. They were the names of resistance leaders in Paris, along with details of their secret meeting locations and planned operations. Elodie's blood ran cold. It was a list of targets, a roadmap for the Nazis to destroy the resistance. The gardener had not been trying to help them. He had been trying to betray them. They had walked right into his trap. Suddenly, the tunnel was filled with light. German soldiers emerged from the shadows, their guns trained on Elodie and Sophie. They were surrounded. A figure stepped forward, his face illuminated by the soldiers' flashlights. It was the gardener. He smiled, his eyes cold and calculating. "I'm sorry, ladies," he said. "But you know too much. It's time for you to disappear." Elodie stared at him, her heart filled with a mixture of anger and betrayal. "Why?" she asked. "Why are you doing this?" The gardener shrugged. "Orders are orders," he said. "Besides, the foudre pays well." He gestured to the soldiers. "Take them away." As the soldiers moved to seize them, Elodie noticed something in the gardener's hand. It was a small, silver whistle. He raised it to his lips, ready to signal their capture. But before he could blow the whistle, a shot rang out. The gardener gasped, clutching his chest. He stumbled backward, his eyes wide with surprise. He collapsed to the ground, the silver whistle falling from his grasp. Elodie and Sophie stared in disbelief. Who had shot him? And why then a figure emerged from the shadows, his face hidden beneath a hood? He stepped forward, revealing himself to be a German soldier. But this was no ordinary soldier. He wore a different uniform, one that Elodie didn't recognize. He carried a different weapon, one that looked more advanced than the standard German rifle. He approached Elodie and Sophie, his eyes filled with concern. "Are you all right?" he asked, his voice low and urgent. Elodie and Sophie nodded, their minds reeling. Who was this man? Was he friend or foe? "Come with me," he said. "I can get you out of here." He extended his hand. "Trust me." Elodie looked at Sophie, her eyes filled with doubt. Could they trust this stranger? Was he leading them into another trap? They had no choice. They had to take a chance. Elodie reached out and took his hand. As their fingers touched, she felt a strange surge of energy, a feeling that she couldn't explain. The soldier led them through a hidden passage, a secret route that Elodie never knew existed. They emerged into a forest, the trees providing cover from the watchful eyes of the German soldiers. "Who are you?" Elodie asked, her voice trembling. "What's going on?" The soldier stopped, turning to face them. He removed his hood, revealing his face. Elodie gasped. She recognized him. It was her brother, the young boy with eyes that held too much knowledge for his age. But he was no longer a boy. He was a man, a soldier, a member of a secret organization that she never knew existed. "I'm here to rescue you," he said. "But there's no time to explain. We have to go, now." He led them deeper into the forest, their escape shrouded in mystery and uncertainty. What was this secret organization? How did her brother become a part of it? And what was their ultimate goal? The questions swirled in Elodie's mind, unanswered as they fled into the night. They reached a clearing where a small aircraft awaited them. It was a strange-looking plane, unlike anything Elodie had ever seen. It was sleek and silver with unusual markings on its wings. "Get in," her brother said. "We're leaving." Elodie and Sophie exchanged a bewildered glance. Where were they going? And what was about to happen? They climbed into the aircraft, their hearts pounding in their chests. As the plane soared into the sky, Elodie looked back at the estate, her former prison, now a distant memory. She knew that her life would never be the same again. She was caught in a web of secrets and lies, a world of espionage and intrigue. She had no idea what the future held, but she was determined to survive, to uncover the truth, and to fight for her freedom. As the aircraft flew higher and higher, Elodie noticed something strange on the horizon. A dark cloud, swirling and ominous, was rapidly approaching. It was unlike anything she had ever seen before. It seemed to be alive, pulsating with an unnatural energy. "What is that?" she asked her brother, her voice filled with fear. He looked at the cloud, his face grim. "That's what we're fighting against," he said. "That's the real enemy." He turned to her, his eyes filled with a strange intensity. "You're about to enter a world you never knew existed, a world of shadows and secrets. Are you ready?" Elodie looked at Sophie, then back at her brother. She took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's go." But what is the real enemy? What awaits them in this world of shadows and secrets? What role will Elodie play in the battle to come? And what is the true purpose of the Lebensborn program? Find out next time on WW2 Edit Records.